Well, folks, we are about a day away from debates approaching. Candidates are getting shored up, getting hunkered down to be able to get some debate prep in as the candidates get ready for debate time. April 16th and April 17th. French language, April 16th. English language, April 17th. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be wild. People are saying this is a pay-per-view event. It should be. Get your popcorn ready. It's going to be a lot of fun. You have Blanchette, who's been going at Carney. You're going to have poilievre doing his thing. And you're going to have Carney being like, go Hamas. That's what's going to happen, right? And Freeland's not going to be there to save his bacon. So it'll be interesting to watch. People are clamoring to see how this is all going to go down. People are optimistic. Some people are pessimistic. Some people are like, CBC's going to pull something shady. And others are going to be like, Poilievre's going to run circles around Carney. And this is going to be the turning point in the election. Quite frankly, at this point, we've already seen the turning point in this election. Now it's all about Poilievre just standing back, talking about his policies, highlighting a little bit of the weirdness going on with the Liberal Party and Mark Carney as a leader, and boom, it's going to be lights out, game over. It'll be interesting to watch. But as we wait, as things are going to slow down a little bit news-wise, things are picking up in other areas. I want to shift our focus out to Vancouver, where a candidate who is running in this current election had their bank account frozen by the government. Yes, it's not 2022, folks. It is 2025, and their bank account was frozen by the government. I want to introduce you to Megan Murphy, who is running as a PPC candidate for Vancouver East. And I can already feel the judgment a little bit through the screen. I know some people are like, I don't like the PPC. I don't like what they're doing. Yeah, we can have that conversation, but the reality is it doesn't really matter who she's running for. It's the fact that a government sees a political opponent and has been waiting and clamoring to freeze her bank account so that she cannot run. A lot of questions people are asking is like, what is she must have done something. She must have done something terrible. What is it she did? And if that's the question you're asking, then you're asking the wrong question. There is literally nothing someone can do to have their bank accounts frozen. In a free society, there's nothing someone can do to have their bank account frozen unless they are on a killing spree or they're on some type of crime spree and the police are having a tough time tracking them down. That is the only time that the government should look at freezing bank accounts and freezing the assets of someone who is actively causing harm to individuals directly in our country. That's the only time that really should be used. In this case, is this because she has a different viewpoint than the establishment? And even probably has a different viewpoint from a lot of people who watch this show. But that, quite frankly, doesn't matter. We're going to read her article, read the story, and what happened to her. She released this yesterday. She says, the Canadian government froze my bank account just in time for the election. Looks like I won't be returning to Canada for the foreseeable future. As most of my followers know, I left Canada in January of 2021 out of genuine concern that if I didn't, I would never be able to leave. I predicted I'd be targeted by the government on account of my political dissidence, specifically due to my criticisms of COVID mandates, increasing authoritarianism, and attacks on free speech by the government, as well as on account of the fact I have been the most prominent and vocal critic of gender identity, ideology, and legislation in Canada for over a decade now. I went to Mexico, watched things get progressively worse in Canada. My choice to leave was reaffirmed over and over again. When Trudeau's Liberals went after the Freedom Convoy and its supporters, freezing the bank accounts of Canadian citizens who had done nothing wrong but were fighting for their charter rights, I began limiting my dependence on Canadian banking institutions as well. My candidacy was confirmed officially on Tuesday. That same day, I tried to access my bank account and could not. I contacted my bank, Van City, and was informed that the account had been frozen as per direction from the government. I had accessed my account 2 days prior, so the timing was clear. I had not been informed of this freezing by anyone, not the bank, not the government. No one attempted to contact me. I was completely blindsided. When I contacted my bank, they refused to give me any information beyond the fact that they were following government orders, and they gave me a number and name to contact. I called the number and got a voicemail saying the employee was on vacation all week. So basically, this guy froze my bank account and immediately went on vacation. His voicemail offered another extension to call, which I did. No one answered, so I left a message. I called again later that day and left another message. No one returned my call, so I called back the next day and left another message. Still, no one returned my call. The following day, I called again and received a message saying I could not get through on account of technical difficulties. I tried calling a general number and asked the woman on the other end of the phone if she could please refer me to someone who could provide me with the information about why my bank account was frozen. She told me I can't give you any information unless you give me more information about what's going on. To which I responded, I have no information. That's why I'm calling you, to get information. It has now been a week since my bank account was frozen, and I have received zero communication or information from the government. I had a flight booked back to Canada today, which I canceled because if my bank account is frozen, I can't operate in the country, and because I'm very concerned about what awaits me upon arrival, I decided it wasn't worth the risk of persecution or attempted persecution, so will not be returning to Canada despite my original intention to come back to campaign. That is life in 2025, folks. And again, as I said, you can read this and see this and disagree with her perspectives. You can disagree with her politics. You can disagree with her as a person. That's totally fine. You are free to do that. But here's the thing, is the reason why we're covering it is because it's about speaking up when wrongdoing is happening, especially coming from the government. Because if you stay silent, if it doesn't directly impact you, then when the government comes knocking on your door to freeze your bank account for something you said online, who's going to be there to fight for you? You know what I'm saying? I will always fight for the right of any Canadian, no matter if I agree or disagree with them. Quite frankly, what I find very interesting is I know, and I start off by admitting, some of you are going to disagree with this person, and you're going to ask, what did they do wrong? To that, I will respond back with, have we seen any of these Palestine protests, and some of which have devolved into riots over the course of the past handful of months, have their bank accounts been frozen? Has the government cracked down on them? No? Why is that? I would say they're causing more harm and direct problems than Meghan Murphy has. What is the issue? Why haven't their bank accounts been frozen? Well, the reason being, it's politically motivated. And I will speak up when this stuff happens. And that's the reality. And the reason I talk on this story is because it's not something just happened in February of 2022. It's happening now in April of 2025 before an election. And you have a decision to make. Do you want to allow a government to continue to act like this? Do you want a government who's going to treat their citizens like this? Or are you going to fight for a government that gets out of your life and doesn't weaponize the system against you if you have the wrong opinions? That is the question that you will need to answer. In the same vein of the story, published late last week, an RCMP officer and retired Vancouver cop say not even police are safe from high-tech spyware. Retired Vancouver police officer Paul McNamara was out with his family in August of 2023 when he had a phone conversation with a friend, Ontario RCMP officer Pete Merrifield. As he talked, he noticed his phone became unusually hot, like it was about to melt down. At the time, McNamara, who retired from the Vancouver Police Department in 2016, was on vacation in Montreal when he tried to order an Uber. He says his phone was locked due to too many password attempts. He found it odd, but brushed it off as a glitch. Then that fall, he learned that the National Police Force had used controversial spyware called On-Device Investigative Tool to remotely hack into Merrifield's phones. This was revealed thanks to evidence in an ongoing court case involving another former RCMP officer where McNamara and Merrifield were witnesses. McNamara says audits allow police to read messages on a person's phone in real time, even on encrypted apps like Signal. But two-step verification can still otherwise block access to data on certain apps that would require police to know the person's password. While concerns from privacy advocates and human rights groups have focused on these tools being used to spy on journalists and other citizens, in this case, spyware was used on a current and former police officer who say they were only ever told they were witnesses, not suspects, in a foreign interference case. Two are now raising alarms about how the invasive technology was used in their case and the implications it has for a broader police use. Meanwhile, one expert told CBC he worries this type of spyware has surpassed legal frameworks protecting Canadians' privacy rights. And this happened to two officers. And these officers are really frustrated with what they're seeing in this government. And they're really frustrated with what's happening in this country. So much so, they put together a letter. They put together a list of MPs and people who are currently in cabinet and those who they believe need to be kicked out of cabinet for what they've done. They put out a whole letter. You may have heard about this already. They had an open letter to Prime Minister Mark Carney and about the people that he has brought into cabinet and hope that he dispels them from this cabinet. The people he called out and the reasonings that he called them out are these people individually. We'll start off with Marco Mendicino. Failed as Minister of Public Safety to act in protecting Canadians abroad from potential arrest and detention. Failed to respond on direction from Prime Minister Trudeau's office to address impropriety at CSIS and the RCMP. Permitted breaches of law, breaches of process, and breaches of policy by both CSIS and the RCMP. Dominic LeBlanc failed as Minister of Public Safety to address breaches against Canadians with improper use of electronic spyware by CSIS and the RCMP. Failed to address breaches of the Canadian Charter of Rights, permitted breaches against labor unions by improper government use of spyware. Failed to hold to account CSIS and RCMP to their restrictions of operations in sensitive sectors of national security. And failed to respond to these concerns after direction from the Prime Minister of Canada. Further, did not hold CSIS to account for withholding critical national security information from the active RCMP national security investigation. And again, that was Dominic LeBlanc. Bill Blair, number 3, says failed as Minister of Public Safety by authorizing extreme powers for CSIS to undertake inappropriate actions against innocent Canadians, permitted breaches of the ministerial directive on national security operations in sensitive sectors, permitted breaches of the Canadian Charter of Rights. And he goes on and on and on. We'll finish off with Chrystia Freeland. Failed as Deputy Prime Minister to address reported breaches of labor rights, misuse of spyware technology by CSIS and RCMP, breaches of Charter of Rights. And again, this is to remind, not scare you, but to remind you of what is happening in real time right now in our country. This government's been in power, and it's so easy to get complacent, so easy to forget, so easy to be like, oh, it probably won't be that bad again. No, they will continue and will only get worse. You remember Pierre Poilievre mentioning the 3 strikes and you're out piece of his platform and really clamping down on the justice system, talking about using the notwithstanding clause to reestablish justice within our country. And again, just yesterday, Mark Carney was asked about that very policy that Poilievre was bringing forward. And this was his answer to that.
I think this is a very dangerous step. We have a Charter of Rights and fundamental freedoms in this country. And it's the responsibility, in my view, of the Prime Minister and the Government of Canada to defend that charter, those fundamental rights, responsibilities, and liberties that Canadians enjoy. The politicizing certain issues with respect to fundamental rights is a slippery slope that leads to further politicization. And I understand if I was correctly briefed, it won't surprise you, I didn't watch Mr. Poilievre's press conference, but if I was correctly briefed, that it relates to issues of crime, heinous crimes, in other words. You know, being tough on crime and being tough starts with being smart on crime. And it includes being tough on guns and gun violence. And I know that, with regret, that Mr. Poilievre has voted against every single gun control measure during his very long career as a career politician.
And there goes Mark Carney, right? Talking about how it's a slippery slope to make sure you honor the rights of those who have committed atrocious crimes in our country. You got to make sure you honor them. You know, when I heard that, I was like, right, this is why we have a fentanyl issue in this country with China. You refuse to get harsh on crime, to clamp down on these issues and clamp down on what China's been bringing to our shores. You are not going to be looking at any shipping containers coming through. You will not be securing our borders. You'll be not getting tough on drug crime. You'll be not getting tough on crime in general. And matter of fact, you'll be looking to continue to protect those people and the crimes they've committed. That's what that said right there. And this should be a warning shot for every voter right now. He doesn't want to be tough on crime. He talks about gun laws. He instantly goes to law-abiding gun holders, not addressing how 80% of violent crime that involves guns in our country is done with illegal weapons. Hasn't talked about what is coming over from the United States. Keeps going after legal gun owners. This man loves control. He's going to be Trudeau 2.0, and he's going to clamp down on everybody and their rights and their autonomy. He will only throw the buck and use the notwithstanding clause or use the Emergencies Act for people who are dissenting to the government. They will only freeze the bank accounts of people who they deem as a threat. They will not be looking to freeze the bank accounts of anyone who's causing harm in our country. Will not be using to freeze the bank accounts of people who are committing terrorism in our country, but only people who say naughty things and are causing too much of a stir online. And we know the level that they're willing to go to make sure they shut you up. And we can't allow that to happen. So the choice will be before you. Voting is open. So go make your voice heard of what type of Canada you want. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out.